بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. My dear sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Talking about trials and tribulations of the Muslim family in North America, I like as usual to establish some terms of reference so that we will focus our attention on the topic at hand. We are saying Muslim family. Do we understand from that a group of Muslim people living together, or do we understand from it a group of people applying Islam in their life as they are living together? These are two distinct units. I have to admit that the majority of Muslim families are taking that title simply because they were born into Islam and they are learning to live as Muslims by trial and error. Very few families take the time and the effort to do it the right way by getting educated themselves about Islamic practices and then impart that knowledge. Will take that identity very seriously and will work hard to know what does Islam entail. Is that families are not static units. They are not monolithic. Every family has its own unique character, and as such, the challenges facing every family may be slightly different. There are some general challenges, and there are specific challenges to every family. So the solutions that I may attempt to present by no means can apply to every family, but they are helpful, inshallah. I have chosen a few challenges, a few of the trials and tribulations that we face as Muslims living in North America. But by no means this is an exclusive list. Also, the order that I will mention these challenges is of no particular significance. It is not that number one is the top priority and then the priority decreases as we go on. It's just as they came to my mind and I registered them in my notes. The first challenge is a challenge that faces all families, not only Muslim families in particular, and that is the concept of the family is rapidly changing, and more so in the last 30 years that we have witnessed so many forms of what is referred to as well as family, when indeed those families do not conform to the definition that is set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the divine definition of the institution of the family. Today, to have a father and a mother and a children is no longer the norm but the exception. Today, there are more single-parent families than there are traditional families. There's also what is referred to as the common law relationship. There is what is now being advanced as a family made of same-gender individuals. There are families that are childless. They choose not to have any children. There are families that are built on certain kind of agreements, and the last thing that we may witness, and I talked about it yesterday in one of the workshops, which may be the last straw that will break the back of the camel, and that is human cloning. Now, I'm not going to get into that. It is not a threat to our iman if it ever happens, but if it does, then the family as we know it will become irrelevant to the people. Because if human beings become the product of an assembly line, then the family will be totally irrelevant. People will have no reason for any attachments whatsoever, no father, no mother. As one professor from Columbia University put it, that if cloning of humans is perfected, then we will not need men anymore. So watch it, brothers. Now, so this is a challenge because our children are growing in a society that is teaching that. Whether we like it or not, we cannot isolate our children. Even though those fortunate ones, and now maybe 3 or 4% of our children are fortunate enough to go to Islamic schools and given proper Islamic education. But more than 95% of our children are being educated in the public school system, and they are being taught by teachers who may themselves subscribe to such untraditional families, and they teach those concepts to our children who, if they do not subscribe to such attitudes, they may eventually become comfortable with them. And this is in itself is quite dangerous. For our children to become comfortable with these concepts is a real threat and a serious challenge that we should learn how to address. The second challenge is that Muslim families in North America are struggling to maintain the Islamic identity. Now we are going through a transitional period in our existence in North America. The first generation Muslims that brought Islam to this continent is now having children who themselves got married and who themselves are having children, and they are really searching for that identity they can be comfortable with, that identity that is being constantly challenged by pressures both intrinsic and extrinsic. There are pressures from within our community that are making our youth uncomfortable with their Islamic identity. If our youth will get conflicting messages about Islam, about halal and haram, about conformity to their culture, about what they are supposed to do, and how they are supposed to conduct themselves in an Islamic environment, if it becomes so difficult that if we continue to educate them Islamically by, and please forgive me, I've been using this term and I use it without any apology, until I see a change. If our children continue to be educated in North America by imported imams who do not speak English well, who do not understand the North American culture, they will eventually choose an identity which is not exactly Islamic. There are lots of intrinsic pressures, and there are extrinsic pressures as well. Peer pressure is the most common that we all are familiar with, and there are pressures from the media images, those images that ascribe to Muslims things that make the young people especially quite uncomfortable. Look at the newspaper today that is all over Cleveland. What did they cover about our conference? They put a huge picture of a mother and two daughters who were at one point, while waiting for Jum'ah prayer, they might have been caught by the camera with one of the daughters totally exhausted because of the sun, and they put a caption underneath it saying, a mother so-and-so and her two daughters waiting for the prayer. And the looks on their faces, maybe at that particular moment, expressed that they were so tired waiting for the Islamic prayer. And now, maybe some young people who chose not to come to our conference, who would look at this picture, who will say, oh, that's what happened at that Islamic conference. Thank God I was not there. They may be questioned by their friends. Why? Why is it that you have to suffer while waiting for your prayer? Media images are not very friendly, and we know that these are pressures. These are real challenges. Now, all young people, not young people alone, all of us have the urge and the need to be accepted, whether it is at work or whether it's at college or whether it's in your neighborhood. You love it when someone comes to you and greets you. As a matter of fact, I notice it. We feel so elated when a total stranger greets us out of nowhere, which is unusual at times, and we answer with a smile. We smile while they may not be smiling, because we express our pleasure that we have been accepted. Our young people especially need to be accepted. And if they find that they may have to take bent ways in order to get to that acceptance, and if they do not have enough support from within the community, they may choose a different identity, an un-Islamic identity. So we need to work hard at make them quite proud of their Islamic identity. Quite often we find that a real challenge in North America for parents is that as they are not doing their job in establishing that Islamic identity, if they leave that job to the friends at school, and if there is a void in their children's lives that is filled by their friends instead of by themselves, then the challenge is not only the generation gap, which exists in any family, not only Islamic family, but for us as Muslims in North America, there will be a cultural gap. The parents will practice one life, and their children will practice another. And we all can relate to that. A third challenge. Now, Muslim families continue to struggle, and to struggle really hard to find that fiqh that conforms to North American society. We still lack in clear Islamic jurisprudence that deals amicably with the realities of North America. So we find that many Muslim families are struggling to find what they think is suitable, and quite often they end up making the wrong choices. Quite often they may isolate themselves from the rest of the society, fearing to fall into haram, and they end up in isolation. And for those who really do not feel comfortable in doing that, they throw themselves to the midst of this society, and they get so assimilated that you cannot tell the difference between a Muslim and a non-Muslim. Not only by changing their names, and Muhammad becomes Mo and Hassan becomes Mike. This is now something that is the least that can be easily changed if we improve our identity. But there are things much more serious than that. These are real challenges. Both isolation and assimilation are unacceptable. And we have, as a community, to work hard at finding real solutions for this challenge. Number 4, a real challenge that is facing Muslim families is the adoption of Western standards that are forcing, and I now would like to address my sisters, that are forcing women to seek employment away from home. Parenting is becoming a part-time job for fathers and mothers, because now it is the norm that both parents, or in families that are made of a single mother, they drag their children to daycare centers or babysitters, and then they earn money. I don't know how it is in the States, but in Canada, there's total inequality between the salaries of men and women. So they earn just enough to furnish a wardrobe that is suitable for them to go to work, and they earn just enough to support their employment. And who is suffering? Those children who love to be hugged and played with and listened to, but they come in the evening, the father is exhausted, the mother is exhausted, and they themselves cannot smile at each other, and then it's a TV dinner that they have to put up with, and the father complains, and the mother yells and screams, and the children come asking for attention and asking for questions, and the father shoves them to the mother and the mother to the father, and the father is lying on the couch snoring, and the mother is very unhappy. And then the easiest solution is to turn those children to the third parent in the house, and that is TV. The most effective parent now is television, and now there are a fourth parent that has been introduced, and that is the internet. Children more and more are withdrawing themselves in face of this reality, not to their rooms alone. Yes, They go and they lock themselves in their rooms. But after they lock themselves in their rooms, they go from that room to another room that has become so familiar. And these are the chatting rooms. And what do we know about what goes on in those chatting rooms? Many young people are choosing partners from chatting rooms. And they are forcing those partners on their parents. Why? Simply because the parents did not use the opportunity to get so close to their children, so the children chose the alternative. Time does not allow me to go any further than that. I know that time has to be shared by other respected speakers, but I have to mention these things in point form before I move on. Now, I ask my sisters, please do not fall into the trap. I am not saying that it is not allowed in Islam to go and seek the highest education you want. But who says that a degree or a diploma dictates that you have to seek employment outside your house? If you get a degree in immunology, it is not the details of immunology that you learned, but it is the educational skill while you were seeking that particular field that you developed and you need to impart to your children. That's what you got. So go and share it with your children instead of benefiting strangers who may not appreciate what you do, but your children will. This is a real challenge. Our children are suffering because of this. Now, brother, how much time? Oh, where's the brother? He's not here. How much time do I have left? 10 minutes. So if I have 10 minutes, please allow me very quickly to share with you this story. I'd like to read it, and I'll read it very fast, so please follow with me. Some of you might have read it. It's on the internet, and for those who did not hear it, please follow this about how parenting has become a part-time job. Now, a man came home from work late, tired and irritated, to find his 5-year-old son waiting for him at the door. "Daddy, may I ask you a question?" "Yeah, sure. Go ahead. What is it?" replied the man. "Daddy, how much money do you make an hour?" "That's none of your business." "What makes you ask such a question?" The man said angrily, "I just want to know. Please tell me, how much do you make an hour?" pleaded the little boy. "If you must know, I make $20 an hour." "Oh," the little boy replied. He said, "Daddy, may I borrow $10 from you, please?" The father was furious. "If the only reason you wanted to know how much money I make is just so you can borrow some to buy a silly toy or some other nonsense, then you march yourself straight to your room and go to bed. Think about why you're being so selfish. I work long, hard hours every day, and I don't have time for such childish games." The little boy quietly went to his room and shut the door. The man sat down and started to get even madder about the little boy's questioning. How dare he ask me such question only to get some money? After an hour or so, the man had calmed down and started to think he may have been a little hard on his son. Maybe there was something he really needed to buy with that $10, and he really didn't ask for money very often. The man went to the door of the little boy's room and opened the door. "Are you asleep, son?" he asked. "No, Daddy, I'm awake," replied the boy. "I've been thinking, maybe I was too hard on you earlier," said the man. "It's been a long day and I took my aggravation out on you. Here's that $10 you asked for." The little boy sat straight up, beaming. "Oh, thank you, Daddy," he yelled. Then, reaching under his pillow, he pulled out some more crumbled up bills. The man, seeing that the boy already had money, started to get angry again. The little boy slowly counted out his money, then looked up at the man. "Why did you want more money if you already had some?" the father grumbled. "Because I didn't have enough, but now I do," the little boy replied. Daddy, I have $20 now. Can I buy an hour of your time? The fifth challenge is that the ills of this society are infiltrating our Muslim families. For some time we thought that we are immune, that substance abuse is none of our concern. It can't happen to us. Child abuse? No way. Elderly abuse? No way. Wife abuse? How could it happen to us? Clinical depression bordering on suicide? No way. We are Muslims. HIV infection? How could you talk about that? But time had shown us that we are not immune. That we maintain the same divorce rate among Muslims as it is in the general public. In London, Ontario, Canada, where I'm deeply involved in the community, I know that we have a 29% divorce rate. The percentage in London, Ontario is 31%, which is no different. Plus or minus 2% is nothing. Our young people are opting out of marriage at the first disagreement because she works, he works, she doesn't need him, he doesn't need her. They got married in the first place for the wrong reason. This is another challenge. Because we are getting married un-Islamically. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam gave us 2 criteria to choose men for marriage and 4 to choose women. But we threw those criteria out the window and we said no. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, إِذَا أَتَاكُم مَّن تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَهُ فَزَوِّجُوهُ. That if you were approached by someone who has the good deen and good moral values, then give him the hand of your daughter in marriage. But no, this is not good for us. We need him to be from the same village that we were born from. We need him to have a degree. He has to be, number one, a doctor or an engineer. And he has to have the ability to buy a house and a car and this and that. Marriage is becoming a real problem. Brothers and sisters, it is no secret that I find parents so elated by the graduation of their daughters with high degrees, but down inside they start to worry about that other thing, and that is marriage. How can they get the support to have their daughters marry the right person? You know, I cannot dwell on that. Perhaps if we have other time in this conference, we can elaborate on that. Marriage is a real problem. Now, because there isn't enough interaction, people they do not know each other. And because of this, children are choosing their partners on their own. You don't have to give it to me. I know, brother. You know what that means. Okay. I still remember this. Perhaps every time I talk about the family, I mention this example. For those who have heard me, bear with me. I will never forget that father who attends the 5 daily prayers at the masjid in our city. One day he came, and after salat, he had tears in his eyes. And he said, Brother Munir, I want to show you something. And I went with him to the corner of the masjid, and he took from his pocket an invitation, and it was from his daughter inviting him and her mother to her wedding. He knew nothing about it. He had no idea that it was coming. He was the one who told me that on her 16th birthday, she got the key to her new BMW. He was so proud of himself that she got with her brother everything they asked for, and that he had worked so hard to provide them with everything they want. And now I ask, brother, did you really know what they want? Was it the car and the house and the bank account? Or did they want that security of living as Muslims and dying as Muslims? Many of us may be, God forbid, devastated if something similar to that happens to them. But you have to work hard at it, that it shouldn't happen. The last two challenges that I have no time to dwell on other than to mention is the challenge of yet not having sufficient and adequate infrastructure to govern the Muslim families in North America as a community. And finally, the challenge of providing Islamic education to their children. Thank you very much for your attention. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.